All right, welcome to the series finale of our explainer on the 2010 Constitution of Kenya. We're actually going to bypass any standard agenda today because we are jumping straight into one of the absolute most dramatic, yet honestly kind of overlooked stories in modern Kenyan history. We're looking at exactly how Kenya took these sweeping, radical promises from the 2010 Constitution and, well, actually implemented them in the real world. We're talking all about Chapter 18, the Transitional and Consequential Provisions.
Okay, let's dive into this. Picture this. The year is 2010. The referendum is passed. The new constitution is officially promulgated by the president on August 27th. There are these massive celebrations. It's a totally new dawn for the republic, a complete overhaul of the government structure. But here is the central mystery we're unraveling today. The document was signed, right? So why didn't the country magically transform the very next day? Why didn't these new counties instantly appear out of thin air? Why were the old laws still being used? I mean, how do you move an entire nation from one legal universe into a completely different one without plunging the whole system into absolute chaos?
Well, the answer lies in the master blueprint of Chapter 18. Think about it kind of like this. When you move into a brand new house, you pack up your old life, you stop everything, you move your boxes, and you just start fresh. But you literally cannot do that with a country. You can't just hit pause on a nation of millions of people. Citizens still need hospitals to be open, they need police to maintain security, schools have to run. You are essentially renovating the entire house while you are still living in it. You have to keep the old systems running smoothly while simultaneously building the new ones. If the transition fails halfway, the whole system crashes. Chapter 18 was basically the ultimate safety net that prevented a national crash.
Now, what's really interesting about this is how the Constitution handled that incredibly delicate balancing act to make sure the Republic endured. Chapter 18, along with the 6th Schedule, explicitly stated that the existing government didn't just stop overnight. The president, the prime minister, the civil servants, the courts, and the parliament, they all continued operating temporarily under the old rules just to keep the country running. For example, before the very first Senate was elected, some of those absolutely crucial Senate functions were temporarily handled by the National Assembly. It was basically a carefully orchestrated relay race of power.
Actually, let's take a quick pause here to look at exactly who this entire transition was built for. The Constitution explicitly defines youth as individuals who have attained 18 years but have not attained 35 years. So if you fall into that demographic, if you haven't hit 35 yet, I really want you to pay close attention. This entire transitional roadmap wasn't just, boring administrative paperwork. It was a grueling, meticulous process designed specifically to secure a functional, modernized, and democratic state for your future. You are the inheritors of the system that Chapter 18 built.
So let's look at the sheer logistical mountain that had to be climbed, starting with devolution. Today, it feels completely normal to have a governor, a county assembly, and county-level budgets, right? But none of that existed before 2010. 47 grand new county governments had to be built from absolute scratch. We are talking about establishing new administrative offices, conducting the first-ever county elections, hiring completely new staff, and shifting the management of local health facilities, markets, and county roads. You don't just snap your fingers and create 47 new governments. It requires a monumental, highly coordinated effort.
And this brilliantly illustrates how they did it. To pull this off, the Constitution mandated a phased transfer of power to the counties over a period of not more than 3 years from the date of the first county assembly elections. This was, honestly, a stroke of genius. It ensured that the national government facilitated the devolution of power gradually, actively assisting these new county governments in building their capacity to actually govern. It meant counties weren't suddenly overwhelmed with critical functions, like agriculture or local transport, that they didn't yet have the infrastructure or the staff to handle. It was a very deliberate, step-by-step handover.
But, the framers of the Constitution knew something very true. Politicians love to delay. So they introduced a ticking clock. The Constitution didn't just offer polite suggestions. It forced rapid action through the 5th Schedule. This schedule laid out strict, non-negotiable, constitutional deadlines for Parliament to pass the new legislation required to bring the Constitution to life. Whether it was laws on citizenship within 1 year, legislation on land within 18 months, or consumer protection within 4 years, Parliament was put on a strict timer. It meant leaders couldn't just give empty speeches celebrating the document, they had to actually sit down and do the work of making it law.
So, what if Parliament just decided to ignore those deadlines? Well, Article 261 outlined some incredibly severe, escalating consequences. If Parliament failed to enact the required legislation, literally any citizen could petition the High Court. The court could then issue an order directing Parliament to take steps to pass the law, and if Parliament still refused, the Chief Justice was required to advise the President to dissolve Parliament. Let that sink in for a second. The ultimate threat for failing to implement the new Constitution was the total dissolution of the legislature. The stakes literally could not have been higher.
So the crucial point is this. When you look around at the Kenyan state today, you are looking at the direct results of this transitional period. The Senate, the 47 county governments, the Independent Electoral and Boundaries Commission, the Salaries and Remuneration Commission, and the stronger constitutional protections we all rely on, none of these magically appeared on promulgation day. They were fiercely negotiated, they were drafted, and they were instituted during that rigorous transition phase overseen by bodies like the Commission for the Implementation of the Constitution.
Which brings us to the core takeaway of this entire Explainer series. Writing a beautiful, progressive, world-class document, that's really only the first step. A constitution just sitting on a shelf somewhere doesn't build a hospital, it doesn't protect a human right, and it sure doesn't hold a corrupt official accountable. It is the implementation, that grueling, complex, unglamorous roadmap laid out in Chapter 18 that actually built the new Kenya. Implementation is what takes the promise on the page and makes it a reality in the streets.
Now, I want to turn it over to you. We are more than 15 years past that historic day in 2010. The transition plan has long since run its course. But the real question remains, have the promises of 2010 truly materialized in your daily life? Has the reality of devolution actually improved government services, infrastructure, and opportunities in your specific county? We've explained the blueprint, but you are the ones living the result. Let us know your thoughts, definitely share this explainer with your fellow citizens, and let's keep the conversation going, because understanding your Constitution is the very first step to owning it.